What's up, y'all? I'm AJ Andrews, and this is the Business of Sports. We're here at NBA All-Star Weekend to sit down with some of the biggest athletes, creators, and executives in the sports industry to get their take on the business of sports. So stay tuned, because these are conversations you do not want to miss. What's up, y'all? You are now tuned in to the Business of Sports with me, AJ Andrews. And today I am joined by the amazing Jared Zwerling, who is the founder and director of CloseUp360's. Thank you for joining me today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
What really got you going? You've been in this industry writing about sports, but writing about all the amazing things that athletes are doing, not just on the court and or field, but off of it. What really inspired you and brought that interest to really be able to cover those stories?
I've been writing since I've been 7 years old. I know it's crazy. My first interview was with a picture of our high school.
You wrote that when you were 7?
Yeah, my first interview.
Oh, wow.
So I knew what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I just had a knack for writing. It was my passion, telling stories about people off the court, humanizing them, really beyond the game, their interests, their impact, their journeys, their impact in the communities with their families. The thing that I want to do, from working at the NBA to CBS Sports to ESPN, Bleacher Report to the Players Association, to Sports Illustrated, and starting CloseUp360, that theme, that root about really like working with them, trying to be like lifelong partners with their stories to really help them beyond the game. And I think that's something that's always kind of stuck with me for my whole life.
I read that you wrote and you said that you have an interest in the unknown and the unreported. How do you decipher, how do you pick which unknown story or which unreported story is worth telling?
For me, it's almost like a questionnaire in my head. Whenever I'm talking to an agent or a publicist or an athlete or even a mother or father of the player, I really want to kind of dig into like who they really are beyond the curtain. How they are with their kids, how they are with their families, what they love to do, what are their off the court passions, what do they do on their off days. So I kind of build like this intel in my head. For me, one of the biggest things is I have a lot of access, and that's been a lot of years in the making. Really having conversations, really getting the trust and credibility of athletes and their agents and their kind of entourage, because they live in a world that's can be diluted through what they say in the media. I used to cover the New York Knicks, and I remember every day on the back page it was always some quote that was taken out of context.
Yeah.
And when you pull players aside, they're like, they just want to pigeonhole me into saying something, and just for clickbait, So for me, it was all about relationships, really building with them in a way that was really protecting them, but not just protecting them, but also telling them, like, I'm really here to tell your story, your authentic story. It might be emotional, it might have some negativity, maybe you did something wrong, but let's talk about it, let's open up to it. And the big thing for me, it's always been around also storytelling. So the conversation always extends to B-roll, to the visual. So if I talk to a player, let's go back to your hometown, let's see it. I'll go anywhere, I'll travel anywhere, I've been around the world. This game of basketball has taken me to 30 countries, and I've been all over. So, for me, it's really like really seeing it. And so with the stories that we do with CloseUp360, it's not just the sitting down part, it's also the B-roll, the visual, riding in the car, going back to where we start, going to their favorite restaurant. So all the visual really kind of is compiled to these really special sort of, I would call them player stories, that really kind of take these profiles and make them into these like 15 minute stories. And we go even longer than that, but they're really like these really special player stories that are very authentic and real and true to the heart of the player.
Wow. I bet the athletes really appreciate that, being able to be vulnerable and tell their story from a perspective that most people don't even seem to have interest in, right? A lot of times it's numbers, it's what you did on the field and or court. How have you seen that response from a lot of athletes?
I think that sometimes when they're doing the filming, they're taken aback. One thing about me is I'm a little, persistent and it comes through in my passion. Like I want to get every shot. I'm a very detailed person, and we've had every player share our story for the most part. We've had a lot of great collaborations. The families enjoy it, and then when I work with the families, it kind of goes back to that collective, and I think that's really special.
And when you being able to write for these athletes or write about these athletes, and then you create these visual images for them, how important is it for the narrative, and how does that really make an athlete's brand, and how does that separate them in the business of sports? Because an athlete is their own brand. So how does that narrative shape who they are and how the audience sees them?
I'll tell you one story. So we recently worked with Kyle Anderson for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and about 5 years ago, I had heard that his mom was always searching for her Asian Chinese roots. She had heard that her family maybe came from China, but she wasn't really sure. So she dove into it, went on Ancestry.com, met with some genealogists, and she discovered that it was true. Her grandfather came from a small village in China. So we told the story there from then when they first met the family back in 2018. And then this past summer, he became a citizen of China and then played for the national team, played in the World Cup. But through that, speaking to your question, we helped Kyle get new deals in China. Things like that, like especially in that situation, a player in another country, getting new opportunities, new deals, working with the kids on the grassroots level, that was really cool. That definitely makes me happy because I know that I was a part of that process.
What is your strategy, or what does the process look like when you're looking to try to build an athlete's brand with CloseUp360?
Yeah, like I said, I think some of it is due to the questions I want to get to know, the intel. It always starts with intel, really understanding what they do off the court, off the field. You know, we work together, really figure out the best timing, how do we want to roll it out, how we want to publicize it, promote it. So, you know, I did a story with Trey Mann, who's now with the Charlotte Hornets. He's an incredible bowler off the court. People don't know this. So he's building off the court a little brand in bowling. So a lot of guys have a current template, this sort of portfolio of what they're doing now. But as you know, the career is not forever. So they want to build off the court even beyond that. So little things that they're doing now are going to parlay them to where they're all off the court in their retirement.
What would you say are the key components to longevity? Being able to tell that story, but then keep people interested in the other stories you want to tell.
Well, I think it's just checking in, you know, routinely, you know, like with Trey Mann, for example, right? Like he's going to keep building that brand. You just have to tap in and just check in and see where you could assist. Story is always continuing. You know, it's a bond that takes shape over time. You know, PJ Tucker is a good example of that. He gets into sneakers, starts building the sneaker brand. 2 years after that, in 2021, at Art Basel, I built him the sneaker lounge at Art Basel. Really, it was a kind of a cool basketball art lifestyle exhibit to showcase his love for basketball, sneakers, as well as art. So that's kind of where it kind of goes for me.
What are you most excited about in your business and the way you're able to help athletes?
Just the idea of athlete-owned content, athlete-created content. It's continues to emerge. There's more streaming platforms now. People love documentaries. Ever since The Last Dance during COVID with Michael Jordan, everyone's just binge watching everything, docuseries, documentaries. So recently the NBA put out, I think a couple of days ago, a press release that 75% of the NBA's social following is outside the US. So it really goes to show you how incredible the fans are beyond the game. We just released the Kyle Anderson Chinese thing I just told you about. We have other global stuff in the works for the Olympics this summer, Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week. So, you know, I think that is something big. It's not just the athlete-owned stories and creating with them. It's also looking at the global appetite of the fan, and then also how players are traveling more around the world now.
Love that. What would you say if you had to pick the number one thing that makes an athlete marketable? What is it?
I would say the engagement on social media is probably pretty big. I think that the way that they dress, their style, how raw they are, how genuine they are. Players are utilizing social media to kind of really give their raw perspective. I think that's what really parlays to the fan really connecting with them, and I think that's probably one of the most important thing right now.
Connecting with the fans, to me, it seems like it would be one of the most important things, and to your point, you believe that as well, being able to have that fandom. Everything is evolving, the trends are evolving, what people are interested in are evolving. How would you say athletes should keep up with that, and how do you help them keep up with that?
Yeah, I think it's I think storytelling is something that I really want to kind of build that niche in. We do that really well, and I think it's something that players are creating more and more. One thing that they think they need assistance with is really like the storytelling. So I think for us, it's more of like the location spots, like taking the player story and then really bring it to the visual. And I think that's something that players want more of. We're trying to help them get there. So just connecting, I think the dots is really important.
Connecting the dots, whether it be on the court, off the court, written material, or in media, you are really allowing to help tell athlete stories and be able to amplify their voices and their brands, whether it be who you are as an athlete, but also who you are as a person. So thank you so much, Jared, for joining me on The Business of Sport.
Appreciate it. No, thanks for having me again.